due to my wife friendzoning me and wanting a platonic relationship. We were unable to keep our 15-year marriage intact. We have been together for 20 years. And my wife 35F and I 35M have been married for 15 of those years. We genuinely love our 2 children, ages 4 and 12. And we put in endless effort to give them the finest life imaginable. It's been a little rough for the last 3 years. I am aware that with school, music, club sports, and other extracurricular activities, our children are at a stage where they demand a great deal of our time and energy. I understand the toll it can have on marriages, both emotionally and physically. My wife and I have been making a lot of effort to improve our relationship. But for the past 3 years, we have had very little sex and very little intimacy in our marriage. This last year has been the most challenging and depressing by far. We were almost roommates and co-parented our children under one roof, so we didn't communicate much. It was really discouraging and gloomy. It grew so dismal and dreary in the house that we started thinking about getting a divorce. As a result, we started going to couples and individual therapy. And it appears to have helped a little gradually. We became closer and had more in-depth discussions about what we wanted our marriage to look like in its current state. It becomes difficult at this point as time went on. My wife began to tell me that she just regarded me as a best friend, and that she was no longer in love with me. She claimed that one of the main reasons she didn't want intimacy, much less sex, was that she only loved me in a very platonic sense. To be honest, I was devastated by it and found it really shocking. I became depressed because I couldn't imagine that the person I was deeply in love with would no longer want or desire me. Soon after, things started to go south once more, and we had to start over one afternoon. I had a heart-to-heart with her and asked her questions regarding the source of this issue. "I don't know," she replied, adding that she has a grudge against me but is unsure of its origin. As you can expect, he offers little to no guidance on how to go about this at this point. I'm confused, frustrated, and unsure of what to do. We've now reached a point where she claims to have no desire for intimacy or connection. Nor does she have any sex drive. She states that her only desire is companionship, which essentially refers to our co-parenting roommate relationship. She said that she does love me, but it's not the same thing. Whenever I ask her what I could do or what it is about me that is ugly or unpleasant, she constantly says, "I don't know." For years, she has felt disengaged and that our marriage simply requires too much work. She is concerned with the kids and she finds value in my co-parenting efforts. Expressing my frustration. Realizing that the person you love doesn't feel anything for you is difficult right now. I feel like my only purpose is to be a mom and make a financial contribution. What she means by companionship, in my opinion, is that she feels at ease with the ease of having a decent father for our children and my financial support of the family. She essentially informed me that she is not interested in or desirous of intimacy or sex at this moment. She said that being drunk is the only way to reach a point for any of that, which is completely wrong and terrible. I informed her that I didn't believe it was a good idea to force her to have sex or to be intimate by drinking or smoking, and I refused to participate. She became upset and more aloof, which surprised me. Both of us are very open and truthful. We have never cheated on one another and are always free to browse each other's social media accounts, emails, phones, and other correspondence, though we rarely do. She said no when I inquired whether there was anyone else. To be honest, I think she's real. After that, we quietly combed through each other's belongings, and they were as spotless as we had anticipated. Even while discussing difficult subjects, we have always been quiet. Therefore, I don't sense or smell any adultery or foul play. Is it incorrect of me to refuse to have sex or be intimate with her just when she is drunk? I'm adamant that I only engage in this when I'm intoxicated or high, since I find it uncomfortable. I'm beginning to feel a little nervous and desperate, and I'm not sure how to improve our circumstances. Both of us are attractive, healthy, and somewhat young. Both of us are good parents and have respectable occupations. I simply don't see how our life could have led us to this moment. I would appreciate an objective viewpoint on this issue, and some advice on how to handle something of this nature. Being rejected and unwelcome by my own spouse is a terrible feeling. I detest it. I don't know why, but my wife of over 15 years says she can only have sex when she's drunk, or I'll have to be content with a sexless, platonic marriage. She has no idea why, but it is what it is, and I need some guidance or understanding. Relevant remarks. Reasons are absent. Upon reviewing his past, commenters discovered that they were swingers. We used to swing, and it was enjoyable for a while. We have determined that it isn't the case, and we both agreed to cease doing it. However, our marriage appeared to be doing well when we were swinging. In order to make sure we're not overlooking a clear potential problem, we did bring this up with our couples therapist. I will admit that when I asked my wife if her swinging experience was influencing her opinion of our relationship, she replied that it wasn't. We always swung together, and it was purely sex-driven, nothing overly sentimental or romantic. I have to believe her. In all honesty, I have no reason to doubt her statement. She has always been outspoken and unafraid to confront issues head-on. No matter how unpleasant they may be, the result of swinging is this. This problem predated the lifestyle by a long way. I concur that swinging wasn't the answer ultimately. It wasn't supposed to be. Finding out or investigating whether she felt any different was the main goal. We decided to have a conversation about it if that was the case and end up peacefully. If we decided that I was the issue and she had no issues with other men. But that was not the case. She also disliked closeness and sex there. She had complete control over the entire swinging situation, and I did comply. What provides? It felt really natural, and she made an effort, if you will, to find out more about our current problem. I was prepared to accept that I was the issue and saw it as a way to find out if I was. As it happens, that was untrue. 6 years of suffering sounds terrible. I would detest that. Lastly, a thoughtful remark on the swinging topic. You are entirely correct that the swinging experience brought about changes that will have a lasting effect on our marriage and lives. Swinging, for instance, taught us the importance of open communication and transparency, which is much more important than sexual experimentation. We would converse with such intentionality that we would practically experience mental orgasms. We applied that to every aspect of our lives, including raising our kids. She even acknowledges that we are appreciative of that lesson learned from our swinging. To be honest, I can't emphasize that enough to everyone here. We went swimming, and it was an experience. It felt natural and intuitive to just end when we made that decision, actually. The previous evening, we had a meeting with that couple with whom we had a great rapport. It wasn't due to anything, but in fact, we cherished our friendship and even spent time together as vanilla friends. It wasn't any better, my wife said. And since she's not enjoying the sex, we both decided there was no use in it. We continued after I gave my consent. It's nice that we're still friendly with those people. Having said that, I am aware that swinging frequently results in serious problems. But we looked into this to find a solution to a problem that has existed for a long time. In my opinion, it involves attempting to solve the issue in a pragmatic manner. First update, I wanted to let you know how this week's therapy session with my wife went. I'm not sure if this is useful or not, but I compiled a list of some topics I wanted to talk about with our couples therapist to help us work through some of the main problems that might be influencing this circumstance. I have the replies, comments, and recommendations from my original post. The word resentment has been a major keyword throughout this, and knowing my life continues telling me that she has no idea why she feels resentful or how it's emotionally impacting her. Unfortunately, I brought up this topic with our therapist once more, bringing up the topic of our 15-year marriage and our 14-year relationship. The course of our life was drastically altered by our lengthy history of maturing and having children. When I was 20 and she was 19, we went through hardships and extreme poverty. And for the past 10 years, we have practically had no social life because we have been so busy raising babies. Our two children are currently 12 and 14 years old. She asked my wife follow-up questions about how she felt about this, and 90% of the answers were primarily child-focused. It sucked that she seemed scared to say yes because she would feel guilty or ashamed, since it would be assumed that she regretted the children. I brought this up during the session, and the therapist urged her to try viewing it a little more selfishly and individually, and from a different perspective than that of a mother. It was really enlightening. We missed out on things in life, and my wife expressed how frustrated she was about it. She was also rather explicit when she said, I do not think I missed out on other partners or dating or partying, but I certainly lost all my friends. What's significant since raising children has caused us to become isolated and siloed, which is one of the major factors that has strained our lives. In my follow-up, I reminded her of the value of having supportive friends and the necessity of scheduling time for both her friendships and herself. We've talked a lot about the value of friends over the last 3 or more years, particularly when you have peers who are similar to you and can aid you in many areas of life that you may not be familiar with or just for fun. My wife has always needed that attention. She has always avoided it. The children have always been the primary reason she hasn't invested in friends or even herself. As previously stated, 90% of the responses must somehow connect to the children. By this time in our session, I began to sense that the children were the source of most of her frustrations and issues. Do you think you may be upset at me because I'm responsible for these kids in the sense that I got you pregnant so young? I wasn't ready. I asked her this question, but she stated she wasn't angry with me for it. She went on to say that she understands it's not realistic because it takes two to tango. Since it helped ease some of these responsibilities and gave us something to concentrate on, I did feel like it was progress. As a result, we decided to spend more time together and separately, fostering strong connections. We started talking about the practical things we would do as the session came to a close. It was still rather unclear and hazy at this point what the results were. I asked my wife what her future plans were in a straightforward and forthright manner. It should be noted that I had made up my mind before the session that I would basically do it myself if my wife said the same thing about being a co-parenting roommate. She began essentially stating that she loves me very much and that she no longer wants to have sex or be personal with me. She regrets that she was unable to support me. I also brought up the brief swinging that occurred, as I indicated in my first post. It wasn't an issue, she said for the 50th time in this regard. I concur with her. This was a mechanical solution to an issue that certainly existed. Neither of us really had any problems with it when we tried it. We both stopped and turned the page after we attempted it, and no, it happened. I also mentioned more life experiences that could lead to bitterness, but it was after that I essentially told my wife that I would not be okay with that arrangement. I informed her that I've done everything I can and that this problem has gotten to the point where it doesn't affect me or call for me to take any action that I don't already have. Being straightforward, I stated that I would not tolerate this dynamic and that I must be with someone who actively participates in our marriage, seeks solutions, and is very motivated to sustain an active sexual and intimate connection. I made it clear that I wouldn't be a convenience, and that life is about more than just sharing a home and being co-parents. I made sure she understood how much I cared for her and how much I wanted this relationship to thrive. Wasn't insured, and it's okay, and I'm totally dedicated to this marriage as long as she is. I will not, however, participate in anything in which these efforts are not returned. I informed her that I don't want a divorce and I don't have any intentions to leave. I did clarify, though, that divorce would be the only result if this dynamic persisted. Tears were shed, of course, and the session ended in a very depressing and hopeless manner. Nothing was spoken, though, and I left the room feeling dejected but resolved to get to work on the 180 as soon as we were out. Being very short, chilly, and transactional is necessary for a large portion of the 180, which makes it uncomfortable and extremely challenging. Realizing how cold and transactional this connection already is the saddest part. This is where things become very interesting. That same day, I began working on putting many of the 180 recommendations into practice. Hey, things are going to be a little different from now on, I told my wife. It shouldn't be a secret that I'm a roommate here, and I will respect her roommate's co-parent arrangement without criticism. And I've finished working and I'll be fine with it. She agreed and went to bed if she wasn't going to work on it. I began to remove myself and essentially concentrate on myself. It grew really brief and transactional. She was astonished when I turned down her request for assistance with some of her personal matters. She was outraged and accused me of being petty. I told her that she now has complete control over her own life and problems. We only spoke when it was absolutely essential, and we didn't converse all day. I continued this for a few days, and she was clearly distressed and under a lot of stress. I usually respond to that with caring or helpful gestures, but not this time. She was crying that night and told me that she was stressed out and that she thought something was wrong with me since I didn't care. I just listened. I then informed her that this was the dynamic she had suggested and that, like her, I was just concentrating on and caring for myself. As I've already hinted, I adore her and I wish I could hold her and love on her. So it has been really difficult to be cold and distant. I've been sticking with her, though, because I know that she's using some manipulation to obtain what she wants and keep me in the friend zone. Let's just say that a lot has changed on her end during the past week of this 180. I believe and I understand we are more than simply co-parenting and friends. She lost it when I texted her a few days earlier, basically listing all of the bills and splitting the financial obligations 50-50. She essentially told me it was unexpected and I replied, "Hey, friends go in 50-50, and as your friend, I expect nothing less." Was really eye-opening because it made me realize how much I'm taken for granted and how her degree of ease and comfort at my expense is truly disregarded. Nevertheless, I persisted and essentially informed her that this was the new dynamic she had requested, and that it was still a deal because she would need to be completely focused if she were alone. To sum up, even though the 180 has been working in a variety of fields, I am still somewhat depressed about the state of affairs as a whole. There have been revelations and eye-opening remarks that have not been enjoyable to hear. On her end, it has also spurred fresh enthusiasm and initiatives, although it's difficult to refuse her requests for more frequent communication. I hope that if things get better, we'll continue. Aside from being a mother, I've also observed that she's taking more time for herself, which is really significant because she essentially ignored herself for years. Her being more herself makes me very happy as we work on ourselves. I hope our marriage gets better. Right now, it's really impossible to predict where we'll go. Even now, we remain quite friendly and cordial, which is a very positive indication. Expectations are extremely clear and boundaries are established. I believe that I will be content with everything regardless of the result. Following the procedure, we will continue couples therapy until we either get a divorce or reignite our marriage. Having this objective third person as a witness and guide through is incredibly helpful. In my opinion, I will always love my wife no matter what. But I refuse to be involved in an intimate, sexless marriage because we both deserve better. I appreciate all of your remarks, suggestions, and comments. I hope you have a day. And this will be my final post on the subject. Since my wife doesn't want to work on us, I started the 180 approach to try to find a solution. It seems to be working on breaking her out of her rut and helping me learn more about how she feels. In summary, my wife friend-zoned me and wanted to merely co-parent at my expense. Additionally, therapy is crucial and strongly advised for all remarks, please. Remarks, comment 1. Since you both work and share children, I'm going to presume that your wife has a well-paying career and that you split daycare costs 50-50. If not, this strategy is just plain abusive. Saying something like, "I won't pay the bills unless you have sex with me," is also sexual abuse. I really want to know how it works out for you. Assuming that's the case and you're not a complete POS, I believe that my circumstances are fairly comparable. We don't share a bed or a meal, but we both work and manage our finances together. Just the three of us, him, me, and the toddler spend maybe 8 hours a week together. And we hardly ever have any intimacy, a kiss or two, a hug every few days, maybe 3 hours a week. Even if it's just the two of us, if not, he is either doing sports, watching YouTube, or doing anything else he wants to do. Not to mention a marriage, it hardly feels like a friend relationship. As the spouse who was presumably the one withdrawing initially, I'm interested to see how she responds to it. Please keep us informed. Yes, we both have degrees and successful careers, and although I earn a lot more than she does, her pay is excellent and above average. The 50-50th was mostly intended to convey what a real-world roommate arrangement looks like. Not to pressure or financially harm her, that would be cruel. I find it incredibly annoying when people make snap judgments about the money control her. That isn't true at all. After paying bills, there is a lot of money left over. But 50-50th implies that she has less money to spend and that roommates share everything equally. We did everything jointly and with our children before this complete Change, we always a team that works together, both by ourselves and with the children. That has since changed, and I'm now choosing to concentrate on more independent hobbies, which is what caused her to respond and realize that there are other people here. Besides simply roommates, comment 2, if two people have a joint bank account or separate accounts, how could one person dump half of the home bills on the other? I'm just interested in how this operates. If applied to my life, it would be effective. Oh, what a question. Everything was exchanged between us. According to the suggested 50/50ths, we should deposit the required sum to cover bills into the same account, and then transfer any remaining funds to a different account. She felt a great loss of control knowing she wouldn't be able to keep an eye on my funds, which is, I believe, why she was so furious. She also recognized that I would keep a lot more of my own money, and felt a great loss in her remaining funds as a result of this agreement. Since I believe she is calling my bluff, is still being worked out. However, I intend to let her know the next week when I change my direct deposit and open a new account. Will undoubtedly be more authentic, for the benefit of all the trolls out there. She will indeed have less money left over after obligations, but it will still be sufficient to support her. Assume, for instance, that she earns $1,000 per month and I earn $3,000 previously. She would only contribute $250 per month, but now since her responsibilities total $1,000, she would contribute $500 and I would contribute $500. I will conclude my remarks about money and finances by saying that she is okay and not in pain. We are by no means envious, and it's fascinating to note that she has plenty of men vying for her attention. When people ask what would happen if she left for another man, I have seen so many times, and her responses seem a little uninterested. I'll say that she would tell me or have some inkling if she wanted a different man. Perhaps it's impossible to know, but I believe the issue goes beyond a different person's surface-level attentiveness. You may be correct, and if so, then so be it, but knowing I looked everywhere, I'll be able to live in peace if she did leave. For another man who would settle for less, I would be upset and disappointed. But I would also feel relieved that I wasn't solely to blame. I am aware that I have some degree of responsibility. That's just the nature of marriage. I'm aware that depression and sadness may surface, but we'll both get through it. At least there will be obvious explanations for why this occurred if it does. Furthermore, I'm positive she wouldn't cheat. Both of us are really direct, honest, and upfront. She would undoubtedly tell me that, like me, she wants to end our marriage before it begins. We actively exercise the respect that we owe to one another. New update: I spent a lot of time considering whether or not to provide an update on this issue. There have been some major changes, and I thought it would be beneficial to let you know about them as well as give myself time to absorb them all consistently. Nearly 9 weeks have passed since I began the 180-degree approach, and my wife has begun to respond favorably to it. As I mentioned in the last post, she began to notice things that she had previously taken for granted, began to inquire more frequently about my whereabouts, and saw that I was spending more time with the kids when I wasn't with her. She began to extend an invitation. I didn't say no because a lot has changed, and it seems to be for the better. My wife wanted to chat to me about something, so she asked if I wanted to have coffee this past Memorial Day weekend. I can't remember the last time my wife. I have to admit that I was rather anxious and concerned about what might be about. My mind was racing with all the possible outcomes. I consented, of course, and we went to a nearby coffee shop to talk. For a while without the kids, it was a pretty positive conversation. There was a wealth of informative information about her that gave me a better understanding of her emotional and mental state. She asked me for assistance after we discussed the main problems we are having is fresh, and I can't express how thrilled I was to hear something so heartfelt from my wife, who hasn't been around for more than 2 years. I thus suggested a proposal that I believed would work for us. Once she had finished expressing all of her ideas, I had been considering for the past few weeks, and if I saw that nothing was improving, I intended to bring it up in a few months, since it ties in with what she discussed and had to do with the assistance she was requesting from me. This date seemed like the ideal time to share it. I began by first recognizing her emotions and worries. I assured her that her feelings are personal and that they are valid. I also expressed concern that she feels this way since I find it unpleasant to think of her being depressed or unhappy. I also assured her that my love for her remains just as strong as it was on the day we said I do, if not stronger, and that my objective is still and always will be for us to get back together and live the happily ever after we promised to have. I told her how I felt about the whole thing as we carried on our talk. To learn more about how it impacts me on a daily basis, see my earlier piece. Additionally, I addressed some of her concerns because I've been aloof, boring, and nearly transactional lately. I told her that it wasn't personal and that I was only trying to protect myself. Because I can't control her and I can only control myself, I was also trying to shield my feelings and emotions from the rejection and neglect. Was a great way to introduce the main idea of this strategy, which is self-accountability. I informed her that I had been putting a lot of effort into making her happy and doing things that I knew she desired or enjoyed for a long time. But I was consistently disappointed and rejected, which made me very stressed. I told her that I needed to change for my own sake. I can only control myself, after all, and change things the way I want them to be. I talked about how I was beginning to establish new routines and behaviors that aid in my edification. I clarified that the objective is to continue to better myself as a husband and father, study more, and be healthier, among other things, while still carrying out all of our shared duties, such as parenting, money, and everyday living activities. Was well received by her. She informed me that she is proud of the changes she has witnessed and that she can see what I'm accomplishing. She also told me that she's beginning to see how she feels left behind and that she is largely to blame for the awful things that have happened to her. As the 3-hour conversation came to a conclusion, the atmosphere in the room was one of reconciliation. I made very clear that I was not going to live under the existing situation, but I did tell her that my ultimate objective was to make things work. I told her that I deserve to be happy too and that my heart wants her to be happy, even if it means going somewhere else. I further clarified that I don't want our kids to grow up believing that is usual or acceptable, because they also deserve better. She informed me that she also doesn't. In response to her statement that she was unsure of what to do, I suggested, let's set some clear goals. The objectives, however, would be for ourselves and not for one another. Thus, this is what we determine. 1. The control of happiness is with us. The important thing to remember is that she is not accountable for my happiness and vice versa. Each of us must look for version of that specific strategy. Additionally, while it is not necessary, we are both invited to involve one another in those actions if we so choose. 2. Our personal lives and journeys are within our control. This implies that it is our joint responsibility to locate the tools required for development, transformation, and recovery. When someone asks for assistance, we can certainly provide it. Nevertheless, we won't offer unsolicited counsel or assistance. 3. It is our duty to communicate. This guarantees that nothing is omitted. It didn't happen if it wasn't mentioned or talked about. We must accept responsibility for our failure to communicate. Since we are not mind readers. 4. List your wants and needs. This provides us both with precise guidelines for attending to one another's needs. Additionally, it allows us to choose what we want to accomplish, compromise on, or choose not to do. This list will not be used as an accountability checklist. We would not be using this list to argue and that the other person was free to use it as a tool for explanation, growth, or transparency. We came to the conclusion that we must determine whether we will be content to carry out these tasks for ourselves because we care, not just to tick a box, since you can't force someone to change or do something they don't think is vital. Was crucial to creating long-term habits rather than band-aid solutions. A deadline of Memorial Day 2025 was set. We ended the discussion by deciding that Memorial Day 2025 would be a hard stop for assessing our lives and our development. We act in this way with the explicit knowledge that we shall determine whether or not we are content here on our own. We will satisfied if we got divorced. We would both take full responsibility for what transpired. If needs weren't met, for instance, it would indicate that my partner didn't want to meet them. As a result, everyone is held completely accountable for everything. If needs were not satisfied, the next step in the process should be to ask, did we take all necessary steps to resolve this issue? If so, We will feel clear-headed about what happened and know that we did everything possible. But if we didn't try our hardest to solve the problem, it would indicate that we didn't care enough to meet their demands, or that the problem wasn't significant enough to us. In every field is reciprocal. Like everything else, we determined that we should be the primary driver of change, and that, if we did so, we would start to observe positive changes in one another. The objective is to make sure that whatever we do to satisfy our spouse's wants is done so because we want to do so, not because they asked us to. We know it makes them happy, and we love seeing them happy, so we should do it instead. I thought it was necessary to let her know that we are no longer obligated to help one another. I want to do these things for each other. Hugs were exchanged and many tears were shed. Although I am aware that there is no guarantee, I can honestly credit the 180 approach for the fact that has never occurred before. I can't say much more about this approach except that it's the only thing I changed and that something new occurred. That seems to be better. Since the plan has now altered, I have made the decision to end and not use this strategy going ahead, because I want her to be content with me. I intend to fully dedicate myself to both development and attending to her needs and desires. I'll do the same for myself, she added, agreeing. We decided that we would approach as a team and that we would support and encourage one another whenever we could. Her dedication to therapy and mental wellness is one of the most significant developments I have observed as of right now. Antidepressants that she takes are helping her. Additionally, she is more self-assured and consistently in a better mood. We have started to explore other ways of closeness in different areas, such as physical touch and words of affirmation. It's exciting that sex is beginning to appear. As an aside, starting sex after being abstinent for a long time was really awkward. We've also lost weight, which is really wonderful, and we've begun working out together, which is fantastic. All things considered, communication has improved and I'm excited to see where it goes. I hope is useful to someone. I continue to be really interested in your opinions. Returning to this, I would like to say that you have all been incredibly helpful in providing me with hope and understanding during this difficult path, despite trolls. Many of you have played a significant role in my emotional and mental development. Until next year's Memorial Day, I won't be giving any further updates. Now, I believe it's time to continue concentrating on myself and begin working on all the new prospects that, ideally, will present themselves with my wife. I hope you have a life and relationships with the people you care about. TL Doctor. Following the 180 technique, our marriage improved, and we are currently rekindling our union while working on ourselves and one another. We also decided to either stay together or seek a divorce by the end of the next year. I appreciate you watching. Please hit the notification bell and subscribe if you haven't already. Receive updates on more startling real-life stories that are happening in your area.